How's everyone doing? I know it's the last tutorial. Hopefully you'll enjoy this one. So what is web scraping? Web scraping is extracting information from a website, usually HTML, and you parse it in a readable format. This is called getting the soup. So data sometimes is not always readily available to you, right? Ideally, it's in a warehouse or someone can send you a CSV, but sometimes that data doesn't exist and it exists on the web page. So you will use Beautiful Soup to parse the web to get information. So the Python library we'll be looking at is Beautiful Soup. There are other libraries called Scrapey, but I think Beautiful Soup is really good, especially for beginners. Getting into web scraping is not such a steep learning curve. And we'll use it to parse in XML. So some best practices when you start web scraping a page. You want to check the robots.txt file, which exists on every website, to make sure you can web scrape the actual website. And we're going to look for user agent field, which is us. So let's take a look at Twitter's txt file. So when I go into twitters.com/robotstxt, we see this file. So these are the rules of web scraping. So you look for user agent, which is here. So this is saying, everybody, this is what's allowed and this is what is disallowed. So when you are web scraping, sometimes you will get an error or you just can't parse that page, and most likely it's under the disallow areas of the robots.txt file. I tried doing that on Meetup the other day. I tried to web scrape my RSVPs for Meetup, and I saw that the RSVP web page was under disallow, so I wasn't able to do that. Scraping too many pages at once quickly can get your IP blocked, so it's good to have like a stop timer, like a pause really, because then the website will know you're a bot. Use a browser developer tool to determine the classes of objects. So if you've ever seen this before, we're going to be web scraping Monty Python, the Holy Grail, and if you guys don't know, Python is inspired by Monty Python, and it's one of my favorite movies. So when you right-click, there's this developer tool called Inspect, and it basically shows you the element that you're looking at and what class it is in the HTML, right? Because how would you know off the bat, like what is the class of this thing right here? So when you're web scraping and you want to find, you want to extract, let's say, this information, you will use the Inspect tool and you will see, okay, this is a span class, okay? And we'll get to that. So again, you use a developer tool and a parser. So Beautiful Soup, you need other packages to use Beautiful Soup correctly. You need requests and a parser. So Scrapey, which is the other package I mentioned, you don't really need those. Those come pre-built in. So just so you know, with Beautiful Soup, you also need these dependencies. So if you have Anaconda, you raise your hand if you work with Anaconda? Okay, looks like everybody in the room. You will be installing some packages via your terminal. So in the Windows, I think it's on your left-hand side, type in CMD, and you should pop up a terminal. So in your terminal, you're going to write conda install. And we're going to install these packages. So LXML, you're going to see an error for me because I don't have Anaconda, sorry. I use Python pip. So pip is a Python manager of packages. So I would write pip install LXML. So run these commands, and you will run conda install LXML, which is your parser, your requests package, and finally you will also install beautiful soup. Four. To see if you already have these packages, just go under conda list, and it'll show you the list of packages you already have in your terminal. So for me, I just do pip list, and it shows me all of the packages I have and the version. So again, you will do conda list. So I already have beautiful soup, LXML, and request. So let's take 2 minutes to install these dependencies. So if you need help, have your neighbor help you if they already have it done, or you can wave me down. So let's take like 2 minutes. Okay, everyone should have installed the packages by now. So when I go to this link, you will arrive here. So if you're not familiar with GitHub, it's a repo where a lot of websites and organizations use to push out code. If you're wanting to get into the tech space, I highly, highly recommend you have a GitHub. If you don't have one right now, it's okay. All you have to do is copy, paste. So I would copy this. Open your favorite text editor. I like to use Sublime, but Idle is okay. Jupyter Notebook is okay. Atom. So whatever text editor you were using before. So I'm going to save this in Sublime, and I'm going to save this as imdb.py. It's really important to have the .py, right? Because that's how you're telling your computer this is a Python file. If not, it's just going to treat it as text. So you see here the colors are now coded because it understands it's Python. So everyone has the file downloaded. Anyone raise your hand if you need a few more minutes to download the file. Okay. So since we're dealing with packages, right, with Python you have to import them into your files so Python knows to use them. So you probably have already done this in your tutorials, like import pandas as PD and so on and so forth. So we're going to import requests, and we're going to import beautiful soup. So it's from BS4 import beautiful soup, and it's already there for you. Request.get is understanding the status of the page. So a 404 is a status of a page, right? It's unable to be utilized. So if I were to print R, we're running through a URL here in the strings. We are, like I said before, we're web scraping the Monty Python web page. So I just copied this and put it through in strings into the get method under the request packages. So if those are the answers. There we go. If I print R, I get response 200. So that means, okay, this page is good to go to be scraped. So one thing we have to do is we have to get the text. So I create another variable called r_unparsed equals r_text. So let's print what r_unparsed looks like. So very familiar, right? It looks like the source of the page, right? With all the div elements and the classes. But Beautiful Soup doesn't understand what this is. We have to prettify it basically in Beautiful Soup so Beautiful Soup can extract the information. So if I were to perform methods just on the unparsed, just on the text, Beautiful Soup doesn't understand like the hierarchy, right? And there's hierarchies in Python, like lists and dictionaries, right? So right now this is just a big blob of string. So that's why we parse it. So I save it into a variable called b. So b equals Beautiful Soup, the function. I pass through the unparsed text, and I use LXML to parse it, right? So now if we print b, and I'm on, this is a new computer, I'm on Python 2 right here, but if you were on 3, you would do print b with quotations. So it looks similar, right, to the HTML, except it's now been parsed through LXML. I am just going to change the display settings. Bear with me. So one of the advantages of parsing it through LXML is it's faster. So I'm going to show you, we're going to compare if we parse it through LXML through HTML. So we're going to use a package called time, and it's already part of your default package systems. So when you want to use another package, you have to type it in, you have to import it. So import time. So we're saying start equals time. End equals time dot time. Because Python reads line by line, right? It's not asynchronous. So to know how long this took, we have to subtract. So when we run this, oh, thank you. See, Python is very finicky with syntax. So this took less than a second, and so will the HTML parser. But when you're, parsing through thousands and thousands of pages, like every bit counts and it adds up. So now let's use the HTML parser. So 0.09 versus 0.13. Again, if I'm just doing one page, I might not really care, but this is, you definitely want to consider optimizations when you're dealing with thousands and thousands of pages. So I'm going to put it back to LXML. So now we have Beautiful Soup parsed this page. So now we can actually extract information from it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to extract the title and save it into a variable. In Python, there's many ways that you can do things like this. I recommend reading the Beautiful Soup documentation to see what's the best way. So I will bring that up. So this is what the documentation looks like. As you scroll through, there's different methods specific to Beautiful Soup. So we're extracting a title most of the time on web pages. That's like an H1, right? But Beautiful Soup has its own method, and it's smart enough to know what's the exact title of that. It's probably looking for that H1. So there's two ways to go about this. If I could find my mouse. So I'm saving it under title equals b.title.text. And when I print title, did I not run this? Print b.title. Title. Okay. So now we have the title, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So like I said, there's other ways to find, to do things like this. So be comfortable with like the structure of an HTML. You don't need to know HTML very well, but as long as like you understand like the elements, and like I said, the title can sometimes live in the H1. So Beautiful Soup has a method called .find, so it finds the element that you pass through. So I know that titles are usually in the H1. So if I say print b.find h1 dot text, it prints out the same thing, right? We have to say .text because that's another method. If I just removed it, it would just give me the object, right? And we want like the string of it. So .text is a very handy method. Methods usually start with a dot. Okay. If there was more than one title, we would have to use the method find all. There's really just one title, but if I wanted to find all elements like span elements, so if I do span, it prints out all of the elements, okay? So this is helpful to, well, this is a lot of span. But just know that on HTML pages, there's more than one element, right? There's not always just unique elements. So you want to make sure that when you're trying to find one, make sure that are there other elements also called this. So there's a lot of A tags, hrefs, right? A lot of divs. So you want to make sure you're finding the exact one, and you can either use this to find the exact name of it and look through it, or you can just inspect the element, right? That's why I highly recommend using the developer, so you're not like looking through all these span elements. You just highlight over what you want, hit inspect, and it'll tell you the name of it. So we'll do that to find the description. So let's go back to, I'm just gonna mirror my thing because this is hard to, okay. So the next thing we were going to do is extract the description of it. So here's the description. I use inspect, and I see it lives under a div, and the class is called summary text, right? So you really have to think about utilizing this hierarchy. So we're going to say description equals b dot find. It's called a div, right? We want to find the div, but then we want to know the exact div, which is summary text, which we look through the inspect element. And then I want to take the text. And then I put strip to just take out all like the white space. So when I print description, oh, I think I'm still printing. Oh, I'm still printing the span. So now I have the description of the page. King Arthur and his knights of the Round Table embark on a surreal, low-budget search for the Holy Grail, encountering many very silly obstacles. So another thing I want to do is find the rating and save it into a variable. This I found a little difficult because there were many ways to go about this, and I'll show you why one way is better than the other. So looking through here, my first instinct was, oh, let me take the rating from here, right? So when I mouse over this, I'm like, okay, it's a div, and it's under the class subtext. So again, I'm saying dot find the div called subtext and print this. So subtext actually has a lot of other stuff. It has PG, the length of time, a lot of white space, so it's kind of messy. So my first thought would be like, let me just slice this data, right? It's the first two characters. But this doesn't work all the time, and why would that be? Exactly, PG-13 R, right? So if I were to create a for loop and I wanted to extract all the ratings of different movies, this methodology wouldn't work. So I went back and poked around. I poked around the page source, which would be in B. So if I print, let me print it at the bottom. Print B. I like to just take all of this and do a new file and just like find PG. There it is in the span class. But I did find this, which is not obvious on the page. So hidden here is some JSON. JSON is a data format that is very light and readable that usually exists in the web. So JSON also works like a dictionary. If you're familiar with Python dictionaries, there's like hierarchy. And I saw here that content rating was the key to the value PG. So I know that this was a clean way of getting the rating, right? I wouldn't have to be taking out white space, or if another movie had PG-13, I knew that this would be a clean way to get this. So I had to import a package called JSON, and JSON is available also as a default like time, so you want to import JSON. So if I were to use this, again, it's similar, right? Things that we've seen before. I still use b.find. I'm finding the script because it's titled that way. So here is the class. It's a script. The type is application/ID plus JSON. So it's the same thing like class equals summary text, just the name of the class. So that's what I pass through. The type is application ID plus JSON. I want to get the text out of it, and I strip it. So let's print this. Oh, whoops. Invalid. Oh. So we're getting there. That's the beauty of web scraping. You have to, really work with these hierarchies and these trees. So we were able to get what looks like a dictionary. So again, the way, since I'm comfortable with dictionaries, I know that if I want to access the key value, I have to reference the key. So it's always after like a colon. So this is the key equals the value. So I know I have to call that exact key. So I will then add, and the way you call keys is through brackets. So I will say I want the content rating. One second. Oh, yeah, I can't strip it. This is why I have my answers to look back on. Dot text. Oh. JSON. What is different about this? Oh. So I know that I need the JSON.loads and wrap that around b.find. So that's when it understands these dictionary hierarchies. I have to wrap this b.find within that. That's why it was giving me an error. So once I wrap JSON.loads within that, I should get just the rating isolated. And here it is. Why is rating printing twice? Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, so there's a lot of information within this JSON file that it will make my life much easier than having to go through every single unique element, right? These elements exist otherwise, but if it's all nice in like this dictionary format, I can just extract more information. So other stuff that I might be interested to extract are the actors within the movie. So this is a nested dictionary, right? So actor is the key value and holds all of these information, but within this, there are more keys. So name is a key and the value is Graham Chapman, right? So you have to drill down into this. So let's do a fun exercise with actors, and we'll use for loops. I love for loops. They're very, very powerful. So the same way we're going to extract the actor. So I just want to show you why I need a for loop for this. So we're extracting the actors. I'm just making a note. I think your file might have this note already. So the same way, I'm copy and pasting, but if you're a beginner, please type it out. It helps to reinforce. Don't do what I'm doing, like copy and pasting. I'm just being lazy and saving time. But it really helps to, type this out. Really reinforces the learning. So actors equals JSON.loads, basically the same thing. And what I think I want is the actor dictionary. So if I print actors, I get all of that information, right? But what I really want is the name of the actors. So that's why I would use a for loop to extract all of these, because there's more than one actor in a movie. So I'll just type this out together. So with for loops, it starts with a for. So for actor in actors, my text editor, Sublime, already indents, right? So in the for loop, it's indented for you. Python is very finicky with syntax. So with like creating functions and for loops, you always want to make sure you don't forget like the indent. So before that, I'm going to create an empty list, right? A list can hold more than one thing, and you initialize it by just square brackets. These are empty because it can hold more than one thing, and I know there's more than one actor that I want to extract. So for actor in actors, I'm going to append into my list of actors. And what am I appending? I'm appending the actor. So let me actually just print actor in case if anyone's not familiar with a for loop. Just gonna comment out these other print statements. Okay. So a for loop goes through, it iterates over and over. So the first line, it looks at the first key value, and then the second, and then the third, and the fourth. So I know that in the for loop, it's looking at this first line, and then from this first line, all I want is the name. So then I say actors list.append actor. I want the key value of this, which is Unicode. And then I have to print outside, right? I have to get outside of my for loop, and let's print the actors list. So now I have all of the actors' names that I want, right? Right now it's in Unicode, so I'm actually going to pass a string function, and that should turn Unicode into string. So now that's changed. Okay. Let's take like 5 minutes, and I want you to do the same thing for the directors. So actor is here, and if you scroll down, you'll see director. There's actually 2 directors that directed Monty Python, and you're going to create a for loop in the director and append it to a list if you want, and extract the directors. So I will give you 5 minutes to do this, and I think it's now a good time for break too, in case if you also want to have a break. But let's spend some time and do a for loop for this. And I'll leave the actors up if in case you want a reference, but raise your hand if you got it. Nice job, everyone. All right, so we're going to take this and create a function so that we can web scrape any other page that we want. So we're gonna use what we learned, do a movie of your choosing, and we're gonna create a function that outputs all of this into a dictionary. So every function you define by def, right? I'm going to call my function movie dict, and I am going to pass an argument. So when you're defining a function, you can or cannot pass an argument. It's your choosing. I'm going to pass argument called b, because b is, actually no, I'm not going to use that. I will for, I'm getting ahead of myself. So first we're going to create a function for our for loop called actors. So basically take what you just did and create a function for actors. So I'm going to define it and just like the for loop, right? And we define a function. When you press enter after the first line, it indents it for you. So we're going to do the same thing. Actors list equals for actor in actors list dot append string actor, and I want the name. Okay. Another thing that you need to add to a function is return, right? Because if I left that out, it basically wouldn't give me anything. I have to tell the function, give me something. So I'm saying, give me the actors list that I created. Okay. So you can use a function within a function, and this is what we're going to do because I don't want to have to write all of this in my new function. I could just reference my function in another function. So I'm defining movie dictionary. Oh yeah, and I pass an ID, right? So every IMDb page has a unique ID, and this is the ID that's appended in the URL. So I'm going to, I don't even want to shout out a movie. Okay, I'm just going to choose Adrift then. I think it was a true story, right? Kind of crazy. So Adrift's ID is up here, right? So I'm passing through in the argument an ID. I'm just gonna, again, don't do this. I'm just being lazy. So the first thing that we do is get the request of that page, right? So I use request.get, just like how we did all the way up here, request.get. And I'm saying get the status of this page. So I like to use a function called, a method called format. So format, if you've never seen it before, basically takes the argument you put through. So I'm saying take ID, which ID comes from here. So think of it as like a funnel. So the ID I pass through here will then get appended into here. So format dumps things into where the curly bracket, think of it as like a placeholder, right? So actually I can, if we just do this outside, and then I say return R, and then I call my function, right? My function is movie dict. And I pass through my new ID of the movie. So we're going to pass Adrift's ID. Again, it has to be in strings, right? Because Python's not going to know. It needs to know like what data type it is, so it's a string. Return R. Let me print R. So there's our response, 200, right? And that belongs to what we outputted here. So I know, okay, this website is scrapable. Any questions with format? It's a very handy method. So I know it works, so I know I can pass whatever ID I want, and it gets appended into this URL. So let me just delete that. We know it works. So then I have to do all the steps, right? So first, get the requests. I know the response was fine. I need to parse it. And I use LXML because it's faster and it's just better. And then I'm going to initialize empty dictionary, right? So movie_dict is my dictionary. So the key value that I want to pass, the key value that I want to declare is the ID of the movie. So I say movie dict bracket ID equals empty dictionary. So this is really the top of the funnel of my dictionary. So director is a key, right? And keys are declared by brackets in the dictionary. So I'm saying the ID is going to be the main key, and then I'm going to have a hierarchy of more keys, just like how director, right? Director is the top of the dictionary, but then it has other keys like type and URL and name. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a key called title, and in that is going to be the text, right? The title of the movie. That's the value. And then we're going to declare another key, which is the description. And we know that we just use find div summary text .text.strip. That gives us a description in a clean format. We already did the rating, right? So this is all web pages, right, are like parent-child, and they should all have the same elements, right? That's our best practice in like web development. You're not gonna have a new movie with different elements, and it's just very hard to like maintain. So usually web pages are like templates, right? Just the content is different, but like the blueprint is the same. So you can create a function and it will work on another page. And this is really helpful when you are web scraping many different pages, right? You can get a lot of the same information from many different pages, and you don't have to recreate the wheel, right? Because these should be all of the same elements that exist on another page. So we're also going to get the actors, right? So, and again, at the bottom, I'm going to return the dictionary. So I'm going to get all information from a drift. So I call my function. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. So actors is referencing my other function, actors, that lives outside, right? So you can reference a function within a function. And I pass through the argument B, because what was B, again, Python reads line by line. What was B up here? B belonged to Monty Python, right? But now I'm saying B equals the text in here. And what is B now? B is whatever whatever web page I want to scrape, right? Since this, whatever I pass through here gets dumped in here, and then it finds that URL and it parses that web page. So I'm saying, when I say I want a drift, I have to pass the ID of the page, right? And now this will go here. Requests will get, will parse that web page instead of Monty Python. And when we print it, oh no, live coding. Takes one argument. Takes no arguments, one given. Hold on. One second. I don't have one called pandas. Okay, it works on my answers. I'll check on why it doesn't in a little bit on my live coding. But basically, now my ID belongs to a drift, right? I pass it through the ID, and now it scraped the new information from a drift. We got PG-13, a description, it matches, right? The description, it takes the actors, right? There's more than one actor, and the title. So this is now a very powerful function. You can now scrape any web page that you want. So I will blow this up here. And if you want, take like 5 more minutes or 6 minutes, and you can copy this and pass through any movie that you want and see if it works. So go to IMDb, pick the movie of your choice, and pass through the ID, again in string quotations, and see if you get all of this information. Question? Change it to, I'm sorry? Oh. That's weird because it looks like the same here, right? Because I have ID. Oh, the B. I never gave it the argument. Oh, no, I did right here. Oh. Oh, I see. That's right. Thank you. See, we're all learning together. Okay, I'll take a look at this. But in the meantime, use the one that works. And just write it over and pick your own movie and see if it works. Can everyone see okay? Do you want me to make it bigger? Is that good? Shrink the font. You want the font smaller? Okay. Yeah, I think this is fine. If you need to look at it, I'm going to move forward with looking at some blog posts. But if you need to see the answers in my GitHub, under web scraping, the answer file is there for you. So if you want to like reference back to it, it's on my GitHub. And you just find the PowerPoints get sent out, right? So, or no? Well, if you want to write down this bit.ly link or, I just said my GitHub is monipip3, right? So you'll find it there. Looking at this blog post, so again, I recommended Beautiful Soup. This person wrote a really good explanation of comparing the two. I think once you're pretty comfortable with Beautiful Soup, you can upgrade to Scrapey. It's basically creates like a spider, right? And it'll be easier to crawl through these web pages. You don't have to necessarily create like the for loops like you would in Beautiful Soup and the pauses. But like this author says, the learning curve of Scrapey is much steeper. And there's really good documentation on Beautiful Soup. I highly recommend web scraping as a skill set. I build my own website on Django, but I'm not like a true developer like at my job, but I work with data, and like I said earlier, not every data set is readily available for you. Sometimes it lives on the web, so I think learning web scraping is a really handy tool, especially if it allows you, right? Remember to check the robots.txt file if you can scrape that information, and it just gives you more data than you didn't already have. This person, I saw this after I did this exercise. IMDb is a very popular exercise to web scrape. And this person, similar to what we did as create a dictionary, they put it into a pandas data frame. So I recommend looking at this. This is part of DataQuest, a very good resource for learning. And they did web scraping with Python, and what they did was look through the advanced search page. And let me just scroll down. So same things here, right? Like they use the inspect developer tool to look at like what are the elements named, because if you're not the web developer creating these pages, like you don't necessarily know what they named these classes. So it's a good tool to see what you need to extract from. So they did basically what we did here, right? So they created some empty lists. They looped through a container, which was basically up on the web page. It's a list of many different movies, and they looped through each movie and got the name and the year and the rating. And we created a dictionary, but you can definitely create a data frame, and that's what they did here. So I definitely recommend also turning things into data frames so you can analyze multiple things. So these are multiple movies. And the question was, how did they loop through that? They just changed the date of the URL, right? So they can just like increment it. So they said the years for I in range of 2000 to 2018. So remember, Python's not inclusive at the end, so it'll loop through 2000 through 2017. And here's some information about controlling the crawl rate, right? So you can pause it. And I think that is it for me. I know we ended kind of early, so I can stay around for questions, or you guys could get straight to, I think, the party at 5:30. Okay. Um, I sometimes just scrape it. I mean, it depends how much you're scraping, right? But yeah, people have used Selenium, but at the end of the day, like you're still web scraping it. So sometimes it'll say disallow, but you're still allowed to. Like you still do it, but it's under. But some are more savvy, like Meetup. Like I couldn't. Like they blocked that off. Any other questions? Yes. 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 But as you saw, it could scrape like some JavaScript objects like JSON, right? We just imported. So Beautiful Soup can still do a lot. It just needs more packages to help versus like I think Scrapey is like much more built in. How do you guys feel about this? Good? You guys know how to web scrape now? Yes.
Yeah, just
Sorry, there's someone in the back. I'll get to you.
Could you post the links to those blog posts somewhere?
Yes, if it's gonna be like a shameless plug now. Like if you follow me on Twitter, I guess I could tweet it out.
Okay, cool. No, sounds good.
So, you had a question in the front.
No, actually, there is for JavaScript, for JSON. Oh. Hi, how are you? So for JSON, there is something that I have come across. It's called Munch. And basically, you take a JSON object and you run it through the Munchify function, and it produces what it looks like an object with properties that resembles your full object graph. I guess it's like Beautiful Soup, but for JSON.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we imported JSON, the actual, the function was JSON.loads. So maybe I'm not really familiar with Munch, but I'll look into it. But with JSON.loads, the function from that package, we were able to extract information like a dictionary. Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming. I had a lot of fun, and then now you can go forth and web scrape. Just check the robots.txt file. You don't want the FBI coming. I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. All right, thank you.